Hi, it's been a while. It's been about 8 months since the last update video. Let's get right into it. Right, so first off, you'll see all these text here, and this is a new system that I've implemented called neighborhoods. And so neighborhoods automatically emerge out of how you place your buildings, right? So the game will go through all the zones in the map and be like, all right, are you close to any other buildings, and are any of these buildings not claimed by neighborhood? And once it finds like a good location for a neighborhood, it'll just claim all of these buildings as part of the neighborhood. And the neighborhood names are randomly generated right now. It just comes from like a list of random prefixes and suffixes. But what's important is when you click on this neighborhood, you can see the total population inside this neighborhood. You have this value called initiative, and what initiative is a accumulation of how well this neighborhood is doing, right? So for example, right here you can see on the right side, neighborhood status, the air is clean and breathable, +1. However, the long commute makes it -2, and so overall this neighborhood is not generating any initiative. Let's see, this one is also -1 right now, this one's -2. I don't have any neighborhoods that generate initiative, which is unfortunate for my demo purposes. But if this were to be a positive value, this bar would go up. And so it's another way of generating some kind of progress, right? Like I want to give the feeling that there's always something happening, and I want the player to feel sort of expectation of like, hey, over time this neighborhood is improving if the situation allows it to be improving. And I want you to be able to like worry about chunks of your city rather than worrying about each individual building, each individual zone. Because I don't really care how this specific zone is doing. But if I can abstract the whole city down into a couple of neighborhoods, then it'll be easier for me to grok overall how well a city is doing. The feeling of the game is, I want you to worry and concern and be invested in neighborhoods, not individual buildings, because there's way too many of them, and I don't really care about specific zones of buildings in particular, but as an aggregate. And this is just a whole abstraction layer on top of these zones. So back to this initiative thing, if there were accumulating points for initiative, if the living conditions were much better than this right here, you would be able to have improvements, and have this improvements tab here. And right now, there's no improvements you can purchase, but essentially you're using initiative points to purchase improvements. And I have a couple planned out. I think essentially things are like improvements are like walled communities, checkpoints to improve security, parkways, so you can have trees along the roads inside this community. So what I would imagine happening is if you click on improve for the parkway system, then trees and other like flora would emerge inside this neighborhood only, and things like terraces, pedestrian skyways, this kinds of stuff would occur only inside a particular neighborhood. So you wouldn't build those physically, you wouldn't like manually place any of those things, but you would purchase them as part of an improvement for this overall neighborhood. One thing to note about this neighborhood is that there's way too many of them right now, and they're all too small, right? Like this Shim Center neighborhood is just encompassing this small chunk of land, and it should be encompassing like a lot more than this. And right now the neighborhood generation system, the neighborhoods don't grow, they should. And another thing is there's just way too many of them. Like I really think this whole chunk should be just like 1 or 2 neighborhoods at most. So that's something to improve on in the future. Okay, another thing is I've greatly improved how the population gets to work, and their jobs all have an expiration date. So one zone can have like an expiration date for their job, right? So I think right now currently it's set between like 90 and 180 days. That's not very long term for jobs, but as far as gameplay goes, you need, for example, if I build like a new factory, here's a manufacturing center. Eventually people will find their way to this job. Already there's like people who prefer this job over the current job that they have, right? So right now there's 2 different kinds of jobs in the game. There's sweatshops, there's manufacturing, and if you count markets also provide jobs too. And you can see here the jobs provided is 40 for this particular zone type. Ultrasonic grinding manufacturing zone provides 150 jobs, and only currently 102 out of 150 are occupied. But there's this thing called, well, I don't think I have it listed here, but there's salary and then there's qualifications, right? So for manufacturing job, you need some kind of education, whereas these sweatshop jobs, it requires uneducated, right? So anybody can take this job, but it doesn't pay as well as these manufacturing jobs. And similar markets also have some kind of qualification as well, some qualification. And how do you get qualified for a job? Well, you have to go to school. And so education comes from being in a radius of a type of school. And I think the way I have it set up, well, I have it designed is multiple school types will offer the same education level. Like, so you have like a college and an elementary school. That gets you a total of two education points, right? So it doesn't really matter what they are, just the number of types in range of your residential zone or area of living, right? So for example, this, let's find one that's like uneducated. Well, let's zone one actually. Let's actually make a new zone. And then run the game for a bit. So education starts off, people who move into your city first is uneducated. And I might change that in the future where like people move in already educated or already wealthy. But you know, since this is a very dystopian world, people move in and they start off very uneducated with extreme poverty, right? Uneducated, here you can see the education level 0.1 and it's incrementing by 0.17 per day. And so overall, I think it takes about like maybe 120 days or something like that to become educated. Well, maybe not that much. Here you can see it's increasing already. Wealth, they're increasing in wealth. And so that is also, causing more people to move in based on the wealth. And so all of a sudden it went from one house to like 3 houses. And then this will improve, let's see, where are they working now? They're working in sweatshops. Yeah. And so if they become educated enough to qualify for a manufacturing job, they'll eventually move to that job. And thereby increasing their salary level and then increasing overall happiness and therefore increasing growth, which allows you to become allows that zone to become a much bigger building, for example. And then the newest feature that I've added is security. And you can see it here visualized by between red and green, and nothing in the city actually has good security right now. And how security works is, so depending on poverty level, for example, this security is poor in this particular zone. And so it's a contribution of both wealth, so very low wealth gets you very poor security. It's kind of like the SimCity crime system, except it's more like a safety security type thing. So higher security is better, low security is very bad. And low income generally has low security zones. And that is multiplied by how many people live there. So for example, this building here, I can't click it for some reason. Well, this building has high population, or higher population than average surrounding it. But because it has average wealth or sometimes low wealth, it'll have very, very poor security. And the security actually bleeds into the surrounding tiles. So these roads all have low-ish security, especially these tiles over here. And then the effects of security is accumulated upon by the number of tiles like a zone occupies in. So for example, this tile or this building, I can't click on it for some reason, that's also a bug right now, it's very annoying. But this building in particular has security, an average security value of this tile, this tile, this tile, and this tile. And that's how this security value average comes from. And security will contribute to happiness and therefore contribute to growth. So having good enough security does matter overall. And different zone types emit different security levels in general, right? So for example, this markets contribute 2.0 security, very low. An average is 5, and so the further down you go from 5 is poorer and poorer security. So right now there's no police station thing that you can build. I think that's what's going to come next. And I think that's just going to be a very standard, you put down a police station, there's going to be a radius of security, and it's going to radiate out from the center point. I don't have anything more complex than that planned at the moment, but I do wish there's more to it than that at some point. And another new thing that I've added is industries. So currently, this industries tab acts kind of like a tech tree. So you start off with third world tech already purchased, and third world tech is just, it'll unlock like residential zones, sweatshops, and markets, right? So you can build those zone types by having this technology. Same thing with light industry. I've already unlocked it in this game, and it costs 5 influence to unlock the manufacturing zones. Influence is actually gained, it's kind of like credits, but influence is essentially how well your city is doing. And so it's a measure of essentially how well your city is doing, and like how well you're able to attract new industries to come build in your city, right? So I don't have the corporation system built out that I had planned in mind yet. So for the time being, industries acts as a proxy for that feature. So you gain industries per quarter, essentially every 3 months, and it comes from industrial efficiency. So like how many jobs are filled out gives you a percentage of efficiency, and overall efficiency gives you more influence. And then also the residential happiness gives you influence as well. This is a very prototypey feature that I'm not perfectly happy with right now, but it does a trick. Essentially, what I wanted to have happen is the better you do in your city, the more industries you can unlock. So it's not just a money thing, or it's not just a thing that will happen over time. You have to actually, people actually have to be happy and be productive citizens in order for you to attract new industries to come over. It's not the perfect system right now. I do want to tie it to education and a wealth level or something at some point, but this is what it is right now. And then finally at the very top, there's you see village, and then you have like this progress bar here. And this is another thing I wanted to add to give the player something to look forward to constantly, in addition to something like the neighborhood system where you have like initiative, right? And this bar goes up. I want you to like be able to anticipate at some point when this reaches max level, this will take your city to the next stage. So I think like the next one is just town or something like that, and then it's going to be like small town, metropolis, city, metropolis, megalopolis, etc., at different intervals of population. And something big should happen every time this bar fills up, right? For example, when you go from hamlet to village, I feel like fireworks should be going off, right? Like people should be celebrating, and you should be able to get some kind of like a nice reward out of that. So this is a way to like sort of gently nudge the player into doing something, into nudging the player into more and more different parts of the game. Currently this doesn't, I don't think it unlocks anything. I think it unlocks like markets or something, and it's not very communicated very well. But essentially, once you go from like hamlet to village, you unlock markets, and then you can place markets, which are these things over here. So there you have it. That's where I'm at the game design phase right now. I'm just trying to expand horizontally first before I expand vertically. So knocking out a whole bunch of these features, getting the simulation working the way I want it to, getting the UI, getting the camera system working, getting the graphics system. Yeah, a lot of work since the last update for 8 months ago. I'll admit it's not as fast as I would like it to be, and I have no idea when I'm going to make a next update video, but we'll see. We'll go from here. Hope you enjoyed this video, and talk to you guys next time.